Envenenamientos masivos y nuestros hijos están pagando el precio.
This is a war against America by the Chinese Communist Party.
En este informe especial analizamos cómo el fentanilo está siendo introducido en medicamentos recetados y en caramelos falsos, cómo el régimen chino convierte a pastillas en armas de destrucción masiva y qué podemos hacer los ciudadanos para combatirlo. Bienvenidos a China en Foco. Mi nombre es Julián Bertone. Desde medicamentos falsificados hasta las golosinas más populares de Halloween, el régimen chino encontró la manera de transformarlos en veneno.
We've never seen in the history of this country the amount of dead kids and dead Americans from this poison. We've never had this happen in the history of America where so many people are being poisoned by substances that are created in labs, made in labs outside the US.
Los CDC señalan que el número de muertes se disparó hasta más de 100.000 en 2021, la cifra más alta jamás registrada en un año, y se traduce en una muerte aproximadamente cada 5 minutos. La situación se agravó tanto que estas muertes fueron recatalogadas.
We don't call them overdoses now, we call them poisonings. And there's mass poisonings all over the country.
Y más del 70% de los casos involucran al fentanilo. El fentanilo es un opioide sintético 50 veces más potente que la heroína. ¿Y qué tan mortal puede ser?
It is highly deadly in the sense of a very small amount. We're talking about your pinky nail of your finger. The small amount of dose is so powerful.
Este es el ex agente especial del ICE, Víctor Ávila. Señala que es tan adictivo que ni siquiera hay que tomar una pastilla con fentanilo para sentir los efectos.
Also, our first responders, a lot of them have been exposed to it by absorbing it or by touching it, and sometimes that'll make them go into a relapse of an overdose. And so we have a lot of issues with our first responders being very alert as to when they come in contact with it.
Teniendo en cuenta lo fuertes que son estas pastillas, hay un nuevo producto en el país que está ayudando a ocultarlo, y se llama fentanilo arcoíris. Derek Maltz, ex agente especial de la Administración para el Control de Drogas, lo explica.
We just had a seizure up in Hartford, Connecticut. It was the DEA task force. They seized 15,000 pills, fake pills of fentanyl, but they were actually in boxes of Nerds and Skittles, which are two of the most popular candies around Halloween. So they're putting it in the packaging. Doesn't mean they're going to sell it to kids, but they're trying to move their drugs without getting caught. But unfortunately, those packages could be left around in a house and some kid innocently picks it up and starts trying to eat the candy, and it's deadly fentanyl. So we've had plenty of kids in America dying in their houses.
Ante esto, la proximidad de Halloween es una gran preocupación.
They're sending these pills in these rainbow-colored, candy-looking like pills that will attract any child to take.
Pero eso no es todo. Maltz señala que el fentanilo se esconde en algo más que caramelos.
They're also making little chunks of chalk. It looks like sidewalk chalk, but it's fentanyl. It's like colored. It looks like colored chalk. It's blocks, you know? And so kids can inadvertently pick that stuff up too. So it's becoming very dangerous.
Pero, ¿por qué se está encontrando fentanilo en caramelos y tizas? Ávila dice que es porque los cárteles están ampliando su mercado.
Very alarming to know that your child can take a piece of candy that is counterfeit by the cartels through the help of China, and it is a fentanyl pill that could possibly cause them death.
Maltz asegura que todo forma parte de una estrategia de marketing.
But now what's happening is the Mexican cartels have implemented a strategic and deceptive marketing campaign looking to drive addiction and drive profits. And they're going after the kids because the kids are obsessed with their smartphones and they're operating on the social media apps all day. And now it's become very easy to buy these pills online and you get them delivered right to your house. And there's many cases around America where kids are found in the bedrooms, blue in the face, dead.
La Administración para el Control de Drogas recientemente emitió una advertencia sobre estas píldoras llamada Una píldora puede matar. y señala que hay una tendencia donde las víctimas son cada vez más jóvenes.
And unfortunately, a lot of young Americans are dying as young as 12 or 13 years old because they're able to buy this stuff now online. The pills are very popular because in America, pills are, thought about as like a drug from the doctor. That's a very important drug. If you have anxiety, you take Xanax. If you have attention deficit disorder, you take Adderall. If you have pain, you take some Oxy or Percocet.
También alerta sobre lo fácil que es comprar pastillas en las redes sociales y cómo esto llevó a un aumento del consumo de pastillas entre la juventud.
A América Latina pode, nesse momento, ser o grande farol para a nova esquerda que nós precisamos criar no mundo.
Nós estamos cercados de bandeiras vermelhas.
Las preguntas me parecieron demasiado importantes para ignorarlas.
Temos outras poucas potências de olho no Brasil.
¿Qué intereses extranjeros hay en esta disputa?
Há riscos de ataques de diversas formas e origens.
Quise llegar a la verdad de estos hechos y de lo que significa.
Virtually every country in Latin America is now going down the Sao Paulo Forum Road, the Workers' Party model.
Isso acaba por transformar esses países em narco-estados.
É o último bastião da América do Sul. Se cair o Brasil, é um perigo muito grave para todas as Américas.
One of the most critical elections in world history. It's not just about Brazil. This is about the entire Latin America. This is about the entire Western Hemisphere. And if the Western Hemisphere falls, that's it. That's a communist world. So that's the short answer.
But if it's prescribed by a doctor, that's cool. If you're getting it from Walgreens and CVS, that's good. But if you're buying it online, most likely it's fentanyl and it will kill you.
Volviendo al fentanilo arcoíris, ¿el color hace alguna diferencia?
But it's all the same stuff. In this case, it's deadly poison coming from Mexican labs run by primarily two cartels south of the border, the Sinaloa cartel and the cartel Jalisco New Generation, which is basically the two most powerful drug cartels. And I don't even want to call them drug cartels anymore because they're terrorist organizations that are selling this poison not only in America but in other parts of the world.
En cuanto a la procedencia de estas píldoras, Maltz señala lo siguiente.
The majority of the fake pills are being produced in Mexico, in Canada, and also in the United States. In many cases, the Mexican cartels will just produce a powdery substance that's fentanyl. They will send the fentanyl powdery substance into America, and then American kids are buying pill presses online, and they're making their own fake pills in their houses throughout this country.
Pero México no lo está haciendo solo. Los cárteles están recibiendo ayuda de un país a miles de kilómetros de distancia.
China definitely helping them with the precursors and the chemicals, and as of late, I've heard that China is even bringing in the counterfeit pills already ready to be distributed already from China. And so China is even helping in that sense that not even the cartels have to produce it in Mexico. They will bring it in ready to go and give it to the cartels to distribute through their channels.
Los expertos señalan que es importante estar atentos a lo que ocurre en los países vecinos, porque tiene un impacto directo en la vida cotidiana de los estadounidenses.
That's the source. 95% of the fentanyl is coming through our southern border, and because of the conditions that we have in this open border policy under this administration, it is coming through. You are seeing record numbers of seizures of fentanyl, but that, although those seizures are great, it's only an indication of how much is actually pouring into the country.
Pero Ávila señala que con la frontera abierta y el atractivo de las ganancias, se está viendo algo sin precedentes, a traficantes de personas y de drogas trabajando juntos.
The human smuggling of the individuals and the drugs was always very separate. When I worked the border for 20 years, and those were very separate entities. It was the drug cartels dealing with the drugs, and the human smugglers separate dealing with the humans. Well, now the cartels have taken over all of it. They've noticed how much it is, how much money there is in smuggling these individuals, plus some of it into human trafficking conditions, where they turn into the human smuggling into exploitation purposes of these individuals. In some cases, absolutely, they're using the illegal aliens to transport those drugs.
Pero los expertos señalan algo aún más preocupante. El fentanilo no es la droga más mortífera. Hay algo más poderoso que llega a través de la frontera. Nuevos opioides sintéticos que hacen que el fentanilo parezca débil en comparación.
Adenosine, isonitazine, they're very powerful synthetic opioids. Actually, they're 10 to 20 times more powerful than fentanyl.
Es importante tener en cuenta que el fentanilo es ya 50 veces más potente que la heroína y hasta 100 veces más potente que la morfina. Pero, ¿qué es lo que impulsa todo esto? Todo se traduce al dinero.
But over the last 4, 5, 6 years, we started seeing the emergence of Chinese nationals in America who are picking up millions and millions of dollars in cash and laundering the money for the drug cartels. And they've created a way more effective and efficient system to get the cartels what they need quickly. They have trade-based money laundering schemes. They're using encrypted apps, WeChat Pay. They're using their bank accounts in China to move money back and forth after they get cash here in America. The sad part is you have all these, not all, but we have many Chinese national students coming into America on visas that are actually being used to pick up money and deliver money to Chinese businessmen. So it's really, really getting worse, and there's not a lot of reports. But there was a report last month about how the Chinese Communist Party are buying billions of dollars worth of land, real estate, and property in America. And then if you look at some of the other stats, the majority of those purchases are in cash.
Pero hablando de todo este efectivo, hay un problema. El régimen chino no permite que los chinos transfieran más de $50,000 de sus bancos chinos a Estados Unidos. Entonces, ¿de dónde viene todo ese dinero en efectivo?
Chinese nationals are getting cash here from the money laundering of the drug cartels. So they're using drug cartel money to buy real estate, to buy property. They're also buying houses all over the West Coast, and they're making indoor grow operations to sell very high pure marijuana that's destroying the brains of young Americans as well. So the Chinese the criminals are involved in a lot of aspects of this drug crisis, but they're smart because now they're operating behind and under the radar, and they're letting the cartels do all the dirty work.
Y dada la amenaza para la salud y la seguridad nacional que esto representa, ¿qué se puede hacer? John Mills, coronel retirado del ejército y exdirector de ciberseguridad del Departamento de Defensa de Estados Unidos, dice que hay que golpearlos donde más les duele.
So you got to cut off the ATM, you got to cut off the cash flow to China, you got to have extreme maximum pressure campaign to cut off the financial flows to China, and you also all trade measures should just be absolutely aggressive because they will get it once they are held accountable.
En cuanto a cómo hacerlos rendir cuentas, los expertos señalan que los nombramientos tienen mucho poder.
We've been asking for a declaration from Congress and other members of the U.S. government to declare the Mexican cartels as terrorists, because that's what they are. Just to be clear, in the history of this country, we have never seen this amount of dead Americans from any terrorist organization. So if the cartels aren't terrorists, what the hell does a terrorist mean? What does that mean anymore? They are destroying our families and our communities.
Ávila añade que se dieron algunos pasos en esa dirección.
There's some police departments and district attorneys along the country that I've spoken with that are now treating these fentanyl poisonings as a homicide, and directly related to that person that sells that counterfeit pill will then charge them with that type of crime. And that's a good thing. We want to hold these people accountable because it is related directly to a death. Now, the designation as cartels, as foreign terrorist organizations is a good thing. The governor of Texas recently signed an executive order doing just that. We're going to see how that turns out, but eventually I think we need it done at the federal level under the State Department to categorize some of these cartels, just like ISIS, the Taliban, and Al-Qaeda, because that's exactly what they are. They're terrorist organizations. The difference is they're working out of Mexico, and they're present in our country and 50 plus countries around the world as well.
Pero esto es a nivel estatal y nacional, y en cuanto a los niños que se están convirtiendo en los blancos de estas píldoras mortales, los expertos señalan que la clave es la educación.
Saludos desde En Primera Plana, de NTD, el lugar donde buscamos respuesta a tus preguntas, donde tocamos los temas que importan, que impactan nuestras vidas, y no solo vamos a tocar la superficie. Nuestra misión es que tú entiendas profundamente lo que está ocurriendo en nuestras comunidades. Estamos aquí para que no te pierdas lo importante. Míranos en YouTube y en Epoch TV, de The Epoch Times en español, de lunes a sábado a las 10:30 de la noche, hora del este. Te esperamos. Hasta pronto.
But we have to educate everybody in elementary school, middle school, and even high school. By the time they get to high school, it's actually too late. So we have to go to the earlier ages. We got to get professional athletes, social media influencers. We have to get celebrities. We have to get role models to bombard social media with these notices about fentanyl. Right now, the problem is kids in America are not watching mainstream media. They're not watching cable news. They're not watching internet news. They're watching the reels on TikTok and on Instagram, and they're on Snapchat, but we're not getting the messages to them. That's the problem.
Ávila señala que con la llegada de Halloween, la educación se vuelve aún más importante.
Even in my own family, we've been just saying, listen, you have to educate your children. This is not the same times that we have experienced before, and unfortunately, this is the reality that we must take. If you're going to have Halloween, and fine, is go out there and do their thing, but make sure that whatever candy your children are consuming, or even yourself, that you know that it's come from a prepackaged at the store, something that you can verify, that maybe open yourself, nothing that is loose, or that you have no idea where this came from. There's no reason to be taking loose candy from anyone, even at Halloween time.
Pero más allá de Halloween, el peligro se convirtió en una preocupación diaria.
Now keep in mind that the DEA has determined that 40% of the pills that they seized and analyzed contain a potentially lethal dose of fentanyl. So that's really, really scary. This is a chemical attack on our country. And unfortunately, you don't hear too much about it coming out of Washington, D.C. DEA and the law enforcement agencies are doing a great job at seizing all this stuff and arresting people, but that's not going to stop the death and destruction. We need to destroy those labs in Mexico.
Y Ávila añade lo siguiente.
The fentanyl is something that is never seen before in this country. And there's other drugs that are coming in the pipeline, like narcissism and others, that we'll probably talk in the future, which is not a good thing, more powerful drugs. And this is a way, I think, not just China and the cartels, but other people that do not want the United States to succeed, to kind of get at us, and it's not a good thing. We must combat them, and it starts at the southern border.
Maltz también arroja luz sobre la mentalidad del Partido Comunista Chino. Dice que si consideramos su punto de vista, existe lo que se llama una guerra sin restricciones, o de ganar una guerra sin utilizar armas convencionales. Y desde esa perspectiva, el fentanilo puede ser usado para desestabilizar a Estados Unidos.
It's a great foreign policy for China. And that's exactly the words of the former Homeland Security Director in Congress, Michael McCall. Congressman McCall is from Texas. And he said recently that selling fentanyl to America is a great foreign policy for China. So that's really how I feel. We know from our casework in the past with the Afghani heroin traffickers that selling heroin to the West is equivalent to a jihad against America. So it's the same concept, just a different drug and a more deadly drug.
Pero en cuanto a responsabilizar al régimen chino, no es algo que Estados Unidos pueda hacer solo.
I wish there was more of that enforcement, especially in the Mexican side of, because they have these connections in Mexico. We know that Mexico's corrupt, is allowing them to bring in these chemicals.
Pero debido a ciertos tipos de corrupción, el régimen chino tiene una fuerte presencia en México.
And therefore having access to the United States because of the lawlessness that's happening in Mexico and along the border as well. And not only with the drug sales and the precursors and all that we're talking about, but China has also gained a lot of access to the United States through that southern border. They've come into our country and purchased large amounts of property along the border and very vital places around the country. And so it's a national security risk. This is what this is. It's a national security issue. It's a public safety issue that, looking at the big picture, that's what we're supposed to be focused on.
Maltz señala que al final del día es importante recordar que esto afecta a todo el mundo y a nuestro futuro.
It's impacting not just Republicans, not Democrats, not independents. It's impacting all of America, and it's probably, in my lifetime, the biggest day-to-day threat to our country and the future generation. If they're killing off all our kids, what's going to happen, 5-10 years from now? Who's going to be in the Air Force? Who's going to be in the DOD? Who's going to be the police officers? Who's going to be the doctors, the lawyers, the pilots, the construction workers, the teachers, the nurses? We're going to have a void.
Teniendo en cuenta todo lo que está en juego, los expertos advierten que hay que tomar una multitud de medidas y tomarlas rápidamente, desde educar a nuestros hijos hasta asegurar la frontera, pasando por interceptar y detener el flujo de dinero hacia el régimen comunista chino. Y si no se toman las medidas necesarias, no solo nuestras vidas se verán alteradas, sino también la de nuestros hijos, y entonces no habrá una generación futura.